Right. So what I think I need to do next is I need to start measuring up, getting some sense of square and straight. Uh, you can see here that there's a bit more material on this side than there is on this. So this is a little bit deeper, if, assuming again I'm playing from this side, it's a little deeper than that. And so I got to put my hunker in just the right place. And then I think I'm going to start with the tuners. I think this is the bigger challenge. Well, I got some indication of the center here, the little dimples in my crazy structure, and they seem to be about 36 and a half from center dimple to center dimple. 36 and a half centimeters. So divided by 2, that would be 15 plus 3? No. 15 would be 30. 36 divided by 2 is 3, so 33. 15 plus 3 is 15, 16, 17, 18, plus a half. What is half of half? It's a quarter. And this is the funny thing between the difference between English and metric. Of course, I was raised on English. And here I have this very nice engineering square. And it's all based on halves and quarters. So if I was to measure this in inches, I can cut it in half by the whole number, and then I can just say inch and a half, inch and a quarter, inch and an eighth, inch and a sixteenth. And I always have that division by 2, down to, with an engineering square, down to a 64th. This is, maybe can't see the scale, a 64th of an inch, which is, basically a half of a millimeter. So if you're based on 10 and you want a half of 5, it's 2.5 millimeters. Where on here is there a half a millimeter? And okay, splitting hairs, literally, because a hair is what, a half a millimeter thick? But it's just a little point that I always like to make, is that, in many ways for carpentry, the English measure, it has some significant advantages in terms of dividing things up, because you don't end up with 0.5 millimeter. You end up with a 64th of an inch. And 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64. It already is almost presaging a digital measure. Okay, so I want to mark some stuff out, and this is, this will never be a beautiful instrument, right? Not like my Portuguese guitar over there. So, I'm going to use pen. I'm going to use ink because it doesn't run away. And pencil, okay, you can sand away, but I'm not going to worry about that. And I'm just going to let my construction measurements actually become part of the instrument. And so my span here is 36 and a half. I'm going to write it down, man. So I'm just going to write 36.5. 36.5 here. That's my span between the center of the 2 columns. 36 and a half. And so if this guy, my hunker here, is 48, yeah, and a few millimeters, half of 48 is 24. So I'm just going to go ahead and say, okay, it's 48. It's 48 and 2 millimeters. So this is the center of my hunker. My center of my hunker needs to be exactly positioned between the center of these 2 if I want to use my hunker on both sides. All right, so how do I find the center of that? Very good question. This is when a straight edge like this comes in handy. And this one I love because it's both in inches and in millimeters. I'm gonna use inches. I actually am. I actually am. So it's let's see, 0 to 0 is looks like 14 1/4 inches. 14 1/4 inches. All right, so I'm just gonna lay that there, and then I got my square, my engineering square. So I can, this is beautiful. You guys don't have these here for some reason, but this is standard stuff in the United States. Uh, this is high precision, really well engineered square. It's got a 45-degree angle here. Got a cute little French curve if you should need it. It even has a bubble level. And I know that this edge and this is totally square. Now what we have here is more stuff like just a square, but it's not an adjustable square. And an adjustable square like this is very, very useful. So here I got, line my 0, and I'm gonna work in inches. 14 1/4 would be 7 1/8. You see how easy that is. So if I find 7 1/8 here, and I'm square, I know exactly where the center point between these two suckers are, to within some amount of accuracy based on the crazy ass principle that I'm using here. So 14 1/4, 0 0. I got this at 7 1/8. This is, as square as I can make it at this point in time. So I'm going to make a mark here with my pen. Where is the center? And I would say it's, now I am eyeballing a little bit. I think it's there. Just to get it, as close as I can get it. Now here's another funny thing about what I learned as a carpenter in the United States, and that some guys joked to me about when I was working on a film shoot building sets. Usually, and again, just for clarity, I'm just going to use my pen here so you can see it. You make a measure, you make a mark. Yeah, but okay, you see how that mark is kind of at a weird angle? What I was taught when I was a kid, you make a V. And you split that, and that is actually, you make a V. I'll exaggerate for clarity. You make a V with your mark. And where those two things intersect is actually the precise point. And I think I mentioned, maybe I didn't, but the Japanese use ink. They don't use pencil. And they have one of the most brilliant traditions in woodworking. And so they use ink snap lines. So what is a snap line? Well, in the case of Japan, it is a very thin silk string, very thin, very precise, very, very Japanese, that has a little well of ink, and so you stretch it out, and it's now got ink on it, and you go snap, and you get this very beautiful, straight, very fine ink line. And then you take your really fine Japanese side, you hand cut right on that ink line. Now, in the States, and also in Europe,